What if I told you that Ferrari could be about to build the best car it's had in over a decade? What if this test in Bahrain is not just another test, but the first chapter of a true red revolution? Ferrari has lived through years of cyclical frustrations, unfulfilled promises and technical concepts that, although solid on paper, fell apart on the track due to correlation errors, structural failures or poorly cohesive engineering decisions. But the SF26 is not simply a new car. It is a meticulous response to each of the wounds that the team has suffered since 2022. For the first time in a long time, in Maranello there is no talk of future potential or need for time, but of a real, tangible, measurable basis. And that foundation is built on data. The SF26 is the product of a silent revolution, not of a radical change in philosophy, but of surgical execution. Ferrari has not tried to reinvent Formula One or force extreme aerodynamic solutions as in other seasons. What it has done is refine, obsess over the fundamentals. The chassis has been completely redesigned to better adapt to the new center of gravity and thermal behavior of the 0.67-6 engine, a power plant that marks the first step towards the hybrid architecture of 2026. And this redesign not only improves structural rigidity, but also reduces weight in key points, allowing a more efficient mass distribution and greater freedom in aerodynamic tuning. One of the most important focuses has been the front axle. Ferrari had been experiencing problems in entry corners for years: chronic understeer, difficulty loading the front axle with confidence, and an excessive dependence on an aggressive front wing that ended up compromising stability at high speed. The SF26 breaks with that. Now, the front of the car exudes confidence from the first turn of the wheel. The balance is more neutral, allowing drivers to adjust their style without constantly fighting a car that runs off their nose or reacts abruptly to changes of direction. And all this has been validated not only in numbers but in sensations. Both Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton have agreed on the same thing. This is the first Ferrari car in years that responds exactly as you expect. That phrase changes everything. In Formula One, a car can be fast but indomitable. It can be stable but slow. What Ferrari seems to have built with the SF26 is a precision tool that does not force the driver to compensate for the shortcomings of the design, but rather allows him to exploit it to the fullest. This platform has shown a wider operating window, especially in heat simulations. In long runs carried out in the simulator, engineers observed a more controlled degradation and less sensitivity to aerodynamic load variations caused by side wind, one of Ferrari's historical enemies on circuits such as Sakir or Silverstone. In other words, the car is not only fast, it is also consistent, and that is worth gold in the preseason. The internal work at Maranello has also changed. Ferrari has stopped blindly depending on the wind tunnel or CFD and has adopted a more integrated vision. The feedback from the pilots is not only heard, it is incorporated into the technical iteration process. Leclerc and Hamilton have spent hours in the simulator on double days, not only to find an ideal setup, but to fine-tune the correlation between the virtual track and the real one. That correlation, Ferrari's big problem for years, is now an absolute priority. It's no use having a competitive car in the tunnel if you can't replicate that behavior on the asphalt. This time, Ferrari wants to make every piece of information count. For this reason, the change in the SF26 is not in its most striking figures. It is not the most radical car, nor the most futuristic. But it is probably the most mature, the most coherent that Ferrari has presented in years. And if this consistency carries over to the track in Bahrain, we could be looking at the first true title contender to come out of Maranello since 2018. Ferrari has not traveled to Sakir only to lap, collect data or prepare its first race configurations. The real reason behind these tests is much more aggressive and risky. The team has decided to bring forward an update package that was originally planned for Imola or even later. A move that completely redefines the conservative approach that has historically characterized Maranello in the early stages of the championship. This time there is no room to wait. The plan is to attack from the first second. These updates are not mere tweaks. These are structural and aerodynamic modifications that can profoundly alter the behavior of the SF26. They include new front wing profiles with greater directional sensitivity, tweaks to the Venturi channels to improve airflow sealing under the flat bottom, and a partial redesign of the rear vortex generators. The objective is clear: increase the load without penalizing drag, an obsession in this generation of single-seaters where every millisecond on the straight is worth gold. But there is more. One of the most ambitious changes is to the side pods. Ferrari has been working for months on an evolution of its cooling concept, seeking to reduce the external volume of the side pods to free up aerodynamic space in the diffuser and beam wing area. This is a double-edged move. It allows you to gain load on the rear axle without needing to increase the angle of attack of the ailerons, which improves efficiency, but requires the power unit to work in a tighter thermal range. In other words, the bet is that the 0.676 engine can withstand more heat without compromising reliability. That's risky, especially in Bahrain's scorching climate. And here is the key point. Ferrari is going to validate this entire package in a single test. There will be no room for long-term adjustments. If the parts do not correlate as expected with the wind tunnel or simulator data, they will face two options. Improvise and revert to the base specification, losing critical days of learning, or launch into the season with a car whose operating window is still a mystery. The pressure level is enormous, not only for the engineers but also for the drivers, who must adapt in real time to a car that can drastically change its behavior between sessions. In parallel, the 0.676 engine enters a key validation phase. Ferrari needs to reach the goal of 6,000 accumulated km without structural failures or thermal degradation that compromises useful life. So far, 2,700 kilometers have been completed with promising reliability in Barcelona, but Sakir represents a completely different test. Higher ambient temperatures, greater thermal stress on the hybrid system, and higher aerodynamic loading that increases the demands on the cooling system and batteries. This test is not a learning session. It's a filter. A filter that will define whether Ferrari can really launch its 2025 campaign with a consolidated technical advantage or if, on the contrary, it has bet too soon without sufficient validation. The correlation between simulator and track is what separates a competitive evolution from a complete failure. In previous years, Ferrari has been a victim of this disconnect. Concepts that worked in Maranello but fell apart in the face of the reality of the asphalt. This time, everything indicates that the correlation process has been more rigorous, but there are no guarantees. No simulation can accurately replicate the full dynamic interaction between tires, temperature, crosswind, and variable load. SF26 has a solid starting point, yes. But Sakir's upgrades could make it an exceptional car, or destroy that balance if they're not perfectly integrated. And therein lies Ferrari's true brutal bet. It's not just a matter of new parts. It's a statement. This team is not going to wait for the fourth race to find out where it is. They're going to force the answer now. And that decision can make them champions, or sink them back into the realm of broken promises. When the arrival of Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari for 2025 was confirmed, the world of Formula One trembled. But what was perceived at the time as a media and legacy maneuver very soon became something much deeper, an internal catalyst to completely transform Maranello's mentality. Because Hamilton not only brings 7 titles, records, and celebrity, it brings a winning culture that Ferrari had not experienced from within for too many years. From his first day in Maranello, the Briton made it clear that he was not coming to adapt to what Ferrari was. He came to raise his level. The first thing that struck the team was not their speed but their method. Unlike previous stages where the pilot received the tool and simply had to work with what was there, Hamilton demands to be part of the process from the root. Your work meetings are not limited to debriefings. He wants to understand how aerodynamic decisions are made, what criteria are used to define the car's mechanical balance, and how the simulation, track, and strategy departments are interconnected. The work dynamic with engineers changed drastically. Feedback that could previously take days to process now flows in real time. Hamilton does not limit himself to saying, the car does not turn, or there is oversteer in traction. It provides qualitative data that, combined with its experience, allows you to anticipate failures or areas for improvement even before the sensor registers them. In the words of a member of the technical team, it is like having a second telemetry system inside the cockpit. The abrasive asphalt of Bahrain is not only the scene of the first real big test for Ferrari. He is a relentless judge who will test every promise, every prediction, every number projected from the controlled calm of Maranello. Here in the desert heat, it doesn't matter how fine-tuned the wind tunnel is or how successful the simulator has been. The track doesn't lie. And the entire paddock knows that. The importance of these tests in Sakir transcends technical validation. It's a question of narrative. Ferrari has reached this point with a perfectly structured story. A new car with a solid foundation, a reliable engine, a more mature technical approach, and a powerful driver duo. But all that can crumble or consolidate depending on what the times show on this track. Because in Formula One, perception is everything. If Ferrari starts strong in Bahrain, it gains immediate authority. If you stumble, no matter how small the mistake, doubt sets in again. And that can be even more corrosive than a technical failure. This test not only evaluates pure performance, it is also a psychological barometer. All teams watch their rivals, all take note of how their competitors behave in the face of the stress of early development. At Ferrari, they know it. Every lap thrown, every long stint, every wing modification will be thoroughly examined. Because beyond the lap time, there is the body language of the car. How it moves, how it responds to changing wind, how it degrades its tires. This is where the true strengths and weaknesses lie that will determine who arrives in Melbourne with an advantage. Ferrari has done its homework. The SF26 arrives armed with a new architecture, a different mentality, and a more united team than in previous years. But the verdict is not dictated by press releases or factory reports. The track dictates it. And in Bahrain, that track can be ruthless. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.